Okay, this is the discussion and the answers for the Part 2 review for Option 1. So if you chose to actually do the paper review for the 7th grade linear Part 2 assessment. So the assessment won't be assigned until Friday of this week for A Day and Monday of next week for B Day. So this is just if you would like to go over this or if you need some review and discussion that includes going over the actual problems, if you chose this particular option. So I'm just going to go over each problem. Anytime you want to rewind or look back at something or fast forward to look at a different problem, that is perfectly fine. All right, so here's the first problem, and these 1 through 5 are all simplifying problems. So in this particular case, for the 6 times the quantity x plus 3, you would want to distribute. So 6 times x and 6 times 3. And 6 times x is 6x. And 6 times a positive 3 is plus 18. So there you go, 6x plus 18. Okay, now the second one is a little bit trickier because this is technically a -1 in front of this parentheses here. So the first step is going to be to distribute that -1 across both the 8x and the 4. So I still have this 32, so I'm still going to bring down that 32. And then the -1 times the 8x, and I'm going to do that in a different color to kind of show you the portion that I've done here. Here, I'll kind of change to the blue. There you go. -1 times 8x is -8x. -1 times 4 is -4. And then in the original problem, I also had a plus 20. Now, I can't use the distributive property anymore, but I do have some like terms I can add. There's no other x on any of the other coefficients, so I cannot do anything with the -8x. But I can add the 32, the -4, and the positive 20. Now, I just tend to go left to right, but you can do it however you like. 32 minus 4 is 28, plus 20 is 48. So I can write 48, and then don't forget the -8x. Or I could do, if you prefer, -8x plus 40. Now don't forget, all of this is calculator allowed. I'll make sure to add that to the instructions on everything. But if you want to just double check the 32, the -4, and the plus 20, calculator is fine for that. Okay, so now this next problem is specifically just adding like terms because you can't distribute anything because you don't have a parentheses to distribute across right now. So the like terms of 9 and 7, 9 plus 7 is 16. And the other set of like terms, which is this positive 12y, and then minus 15y. Now remember, a -15 and a positive 12, you can cancel out 12 of them, but you still have 3 negatives left. So it would be a minus 3y. Okay, so 16 minus 3y. And options of 16 plus -3y, of course, or -3y plus 16 are all fine as well. All right, number 4. Okay, so 2 times x minus 8. I can distribute this, and that's what I'm going to do first, and then I can add like terms second. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute 2 times x and 2 times a -8. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times that -8 is minus 16. Okay, and then I'm just going to rewrite the plus 9. I'll write it in a different color, and then minus 3x. Okay. And then I'm going to put together the like term. So I have 2x minus 3x, and because the 3 has a larger absolute value or is farther from 0, I have more negatives. And so 2 of them will cancel and I'll have 1 left over, but it will be negative. So -1x. And then -16 plus 9, same reasoning here. The -16 has a larger absolute value. It's farther from 0. So therefore, when I add 9 and -16, excuse me, I'm going to get a negative number. So think of it as 16 minus 9, which is 7, but I had 7 negatives left over. so minus 7. Okay, if you are still kind of forgetting how you can do that, remember we could do positive and negative dots. And if I do this 16 and the 9, which was kind of a little harder to get that negative 7, I would have 16 negative dots. Okay, so 16 negative dots and 9 positive dots. Okay, and then I would cross out all that I could. So I'm going to cross out one whole row here and this full row. And then I can cross out 4 more here and all of them here. And you'll notice I have 5, 6, 7, so 7, but on the negative side, which is where that negative 7 comes from. Okay, so again, the final answer was negative 1x minus 7 or negative 7 minus 1x, which is also fine. Okay, now, this last problem on the simplifying section, I'm going to multiply the 9 across the 11y minus 5, and then the 6, so 2 distributive property portions, so the 9 times 11, and then 9 times the negative 5. 9 times 11 is 99y. 9 times negative 5 is minus 45. And 6 times 4 is plus 24. And 6 times that negative 10y minus 60y. All right, now I can basically take the adding like terms pieces. And so 99 minus 60, y, they're both y's. So 99 minus 60 and 99 minus 60 is 39. But don't forget it's a 39y. Okay, and the 45 and the 24 work the same way. This time I have more negatives, so kind of similar to this, although I'm not going to draw it out. Okay, so I'm going to have a negative answer, so minus, and then 45 minus 24 is 21, so 39y minus 21. Okay, or, of course, 39y plus negative 21. Or negative 21 plus 39y. All of those options are available. I think I should probably stop using that pen. Having some problems. All right, so next problem here. 3x plus 9 equals negative 33. Now notice I'm now in a solving section. So although I'm going to simplify first if I can, I'm looking to find an x equals or a y equals some form of actual solution. So, in this case, I cannot simplify anything on this side of the equation, and certainly can't simplify anything over there. So, I'm going to do the opposite to move things over the other side. So here, this was a plus. To get rid of it and keep everything balanced, I'm going to subtract 9. 9 minus 9 is 0, so over here I'll have 3x. Negative 33 minus 9 equals negative 42. Okay, and my second step, I'm going to divide both sides by 3, and I will get x equals, now, negative 42 divided by 3 is negative 14. And there's your answer. Okay, again, on number 7, I cannot simplify anything, so I'm just going to start moving things over. And in this case, I get x over 4, and remember x over 4 is the same as 1/4 x. Okay, so either way you want to look at it is fine. If you prefer having the 1/4 kind of the coefficient in front, which a lot of people do, it is perfectly fine to rewrite it, just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to get rid of the minus 5. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. And I have 1/4 x equals 28. Now I want to get rid of that 1/4. And so I'm going to do what you did last year in 6th grade, which is multiply by the reciprocal, but because I'm dividing by 1/4, which is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. Okay, so I'm going to multiply by 4 over 1. And in this case, 4 times 20 is 80. 4 times 8 is 32. 80 and 32 is 112. Do not forget, calculator is just fine, because I expect to see all that work and kind of know that you know how to do the steps. It's not as concerning right now that you are multiplying and dividing with some of the larger numbers in particular. Okay, 8 minus 1/5 y. Now this is kind of a flipped thing, okay, and it equals 15. So again, you're still solving. You may want to kind of hide the number 8 that is right here and just kind of look at the problem so you don't get confused. Okay, so I'm going to want to get rid of that 8 there, and because there's nothing in front of it, it is a positive 8. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. Now don't forget, this negative is still there. The 8 minus 8 is gone, but it is still a negative 1/5 y. And 15 minus 8 is 7. And then my next step, because I'm now going to want to get rid of that negative 1/5 because I just want to know what y is. My goal is to find just y to isolate the variable. Okay, so I'm going to multiply by negative 5 over 1. Okay, and 7 times negative 5 is negative 35 divided by 1 is still negative 35. And if you had negative 35 over 1, that would be fine. Okay. This one I think is maybe a little simpler, although the answer does end up being a decimal. So in some cases that seems a little harder, but here, 10 minus 8x. If we kind of look at what we have, 10 plus negative 8x, equals 54, but it's the same as 10 minus 8x equals 54. So the first thing I'm going to do is want to get rid of that positive 10 here. So I'm going to subtract the 10. We have negative 8x, and 54 minus 10 is 44. Okay, now the next step would be to divide by that negative 8. Okay, a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So here is my fraction, but I'm going to want to reduce that. I'm going to leave it in fraction form. You're welcome to use decimal form. So both 44 and 8 are divisible by 4. So I'm going to divide them both by 4. Okay, and so x equals negative 11 over 2. Negative 11 halves, there we go. Negative 11 halves, or you could write x equals negative 5.5, or x equals negative 5.5. Those are all fine. Okay, now the second page. The number 10 got a little bit off, so I will fix that on the new one, but negative 10x plus 9 equals negative 16. So I'm just going to kind of move that over here. So negative 10x plus 9 equals negative 16. Okay, so now I'm going to subtract that 9. Negative 10x equals negative 25. Okay, and then we're going to divide by negative 10. And x equals 2.5. And for whatever reason, when I divide by 10, I do tend to use the decimal form, but it is perfectly fine. You have x equals 5 halves, which is 25 tenths reduced. Okay, now number 11. 8 times x plus 9 equals negative 24. Okay, so this time I am going to have to actually simplify that left-hand side of the equation. I think it's much easier to do this first. It's not necessary. There are other ways you can do it. It's not the only way to do this problem, but I prefer to simplify first. So I'll do 8 times x and 8 times 9. So 8x, 8 times 9 is 72. Okay, so 8x plus 72 equals negative 24. Then the next step I would do is subtract 72 from both sides. 72 and the negative 72 cancel. We have 8x, and negative 24 minus 72 is negative 96, because remember they're both negative, so everything's on the side of the negative, so you can just add them and make sure you realize they're negative. Okay, now I'm not quite done with the problem because I do need to divide by the 8 because I want to know what x is, not what 8x is. So x equals negative 96 divided by 8 is negative 12. Okay, 3x plus 2 minus 5x minus 7 equals 25. Now, there's no distributive property here, but there are some like terms on the left-hand side that I could combine. And I think that's probably the easiest way to do this problem. You don't have to, but it is, I think, the simplest way. So 3x minus 5x, 3 minus 5 is negative 2. So here I have negative 2x. And then positive 2 minus 7, negative 2x minus 5, and then equals 25. Now I can't combine anything else on this side of the equation, so now I'm going to start solving. Okay, so I have a negative 5, and I want to move it over, so I want to get rid of it, so I'm going to add 5. But of course, because I need to balance both sides of the equation, I'm going to add 5 over here. So negative 5 plus 5, negative 2x, 25 plus 5 is 30. Divide by negative 2, and x is negative 15. Okay, next problem here is number 13. I like this problem because it sort of reminds people that you don't have to have more than one thing to combine on one side if you'd like to combine. So I can combine that 10 and the negative 12 right here. I'm going to put a little sheet of paper on top of the other portion so that you can see this better. There we go. So I'm going to combine the 10 and the negative 12. You could move them over first if you wanted to do that, but I find it much easier to just combine. So I have 10 minus 12. Okay, so 10 minus 12 is negative 2. So I have 9x because I brought that down. 10 minus 12 is minus 2 equals negative 92. Okay, then I'm going to add the 2 to both sides. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. 9x over here. Negative 92 plus 2 is negative 90. Okay, and then we're going to divide by 9. So x is negative 10. Okay, next problem. Now this one I really do consider kind of a higher level problem. It's pretty tricky. So don't worry too much if it's tricky for you. You can still, of course, pass this assessment at this point without fully being able to understand this, but I do want you to at least try it, make an attempt on it. So first of all, that negative in front of the parentheses, that distributing, that negative, remember that is a negative 1 in front of the parentheses. Okay, so now don't forget to bring down this 11, and again, you might want to hide the 14 to make sure you don't think it's part of the problem. Okay, so 11, but when I'm distributing, and I'm going to use a different color again, when I'm distributing this negative 1 across the 2x and across the 13, negative 1 times 2x is a negative 2x. Negative 1 times a negative 13, negative times a negative is a positive 13. Okay, and then also don't forget this still equals 38. So kind of that continued part of the problem. Let's try to make that look like it's the same color. All right, so now on this side of the equation, I can combine a couple of things. So the 11 and the 13, but not the negative 2x. This is a positive 11, because there's nothing in front of it, and there's a plus 13. So they're both positive. 11 plus 13 is 24. And then don't forget to bring down the minus 2x. Okay, so 24 minus 2x equals 38. Now I can begin solving because I've done all the simplifying I can onto that left-hand side. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 24 from both sides. Okay, so negative 2x is 24 canceled. 38 minus 24 is 14. So now if I divide that by negative 2, x is negative 7. Oops, excuse me. There you go. All right, now I did want to do some problems that included fractions. So these last 4 include some fractions. The last 2 are a little bit tricky, so don't worry too much, but they combine a lot of different things. This one, not nearly as many. If you prefer that, and some people really do prefer that they have the variable on the left-hand side, you can go ahead and change that. I know some people prefer that. I don't really mind that it's on the right-hand side, but I know I want to get rid of that 7/8. I just want a y. to get rid of a fraction, we're going to divide. If we're going to divide by that multiplying fraction, divide by 7/8. Remember, dividing by 7/8 is the same as multiplying by 8/7. Okay, so I multiply both sides, and since I kind of have room here, I'm going to multiply both sides by 8/7. Now these are just going to cancel. This is 56 over 56, which is just 1. So here I'll have 1y. Now, I know that I always make these come out whole, at least the simpler ones I do. So I'm going to divide first because 84 times 8 is a pretty large number. 84 divided by 7, however, is a smaller number. So 84 divided by 7 is 12, and then I'll do 12 times 8. And so let me just kind of write that 84 divided by 7 is 12. And 12 times 8. 12 times 8 is 96. So the answer is 96. Okay, 3 more problems here. So, and I think I'm going to go ahead and use the other page so you can kind of see these a little better. All right, 43 equals negative 5/3 x plus 8. Now, again, if you want to move it over, that's fine. I'm going to work on this side and move things over here this time. There's nothing to combine. I have no like terms over here, so in order to solve, I do need to be moving things over to balance the equation and to basically isolate the variable of x. Okay, plus 8 is going to become a minus 8. And 43 minus 8 is 35. Okay, so 35 equals negative 5/3 x. So what I'll now do is, remember, I'm going to divide by negative 5/3, which is the same as multiplying by negative 3/5, the reciprocal of that. Okay, so I'm going to multiply by negative 3/5. Okay, so now this kind of goes away. Equals x. Okay, negative 5/3 times, I apologize, parents called. Negative 5/3 times negative 3/5 is just 1, so 1x. Okay, and then here I have 35 divided by 5, which is 7, and 7 times that negative 3, which is a negative 21. So x equals negative 21, or negative 21 equals x. Okay, 2 final problems, and these 2 will have some like terms you can combine. So in this case, where I look at this side here, I can combine the 2 x terms, the 2 terms that have an x as their coefficient, as their variable. So I have to combine the coefficients of negative 4/5 and positive 2/3. Okay, so when we add fractions, so I'm going to have to do this negative 4/5 plus 2/3. Remember that when we add fractions, we need to have a common denominator. So in this case, my common denominator will be 15. So I'm going to multiply by 3 and 3. So negative 12 over 15. And in this case, I'm going to multiply by 5 over 5 to make that 15. So plus 10 over 15. Okay, so now I'm going to change this problem to negative 12 over 15x plus 10 over 15x plus 8 equals negative 6. Okay, so now I'm going to combine these 2. Negative 12/15 and positive 10/15 is negative 2/15x. And then don't forget the plus 8 equals negative 6. Okay, now the problem will be much easier. So I just need to move the 8 over, because now I'm going to start solving. I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. Okay, so negative 2 over 15x equals negative 14. Okay, and then again, remember, I'm going to have to multiply by that reciprocal. Multiply by 15 halves, but in this case, a negative 15 halves. Okay, and barely any room there. So a negative times a negative, remember, is a positive. So negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7. And then times that negative 15 So negative times a negative is a positive, and 7 times 15 is 105. Okay, last problem. Okay, so in this case, again, you're going to want to combine some like terms. So the 1/6 y and the 3/2 y need to be combined. So if we move kind of over here, I'm going to combine 1/6 and 3/2. Okay, and the common denominator will be 6. So I'm going to multiply this by 3/3. So I'm going to have 1/6 plus 9/6, which would be 10/6. Okay, so moving it back over here, and this time I think I'm just going to actually write 10/6 y so I don't run out of room. Okay, so I'm going to have 10/6, don't forget the y, minus 1/3 equals 4. Okay, and this time when I start to solve, so as I look at that negative 1/3, I'm going to move it over here. So I'm going to add 1/3 to both sides. But I'm not going to want to write this as a mixed fraction as 4 and 1/3. So if I do 4 plus 1/3, okay, this is 4/1 plus 1/3. So I'm going to want to add like terms again. And so, I'm going to want to find a common denominator again. Okay, so I'm going to multiply by 3/3 here because the common denominator is 3. So I'm going to have 12/3 plus 1/3, which is 13/3. Okay, and moving back over here, so this negative 1/3 plus 1/3 canceled out. We still have the 10/6y. And this is a particularly tricky problem. So now 12/3 plus 1/3 is 13/3. Okay, and now I'm going to want to get rid of that 10/6. I didn't reduce it to 5/3. I could have, in fact, I think I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So change that to 5/3 because I can divide both of these by 2. Okay, so what I really have is 5/3 y equals 13/3. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and rewrite that down here so you can see it really well. Right, and then I want to divide by 5/3, which again, dividing by 5/3 means multiplying by the reciprocal, that 3/2. Okay, so both sides I'm going to multiply by 3/2 and multiply by 3/2. Okay, and in this case, this is going to be 15/15, or just 1, so 1y. Okay, and in this case, I'm going to cross cancel. So 3 and 3 divide to become 1, so I have 13/5. Okay, now if you prefer the decimal version or the mixed fraction version, that's fine. So I don't mind the improper. So 2 3/5 is fine, or 2.6 is fine. All right, thanks a lot, and I hope you were able to kind of fast forward and use this the way you needed to, and enjoy your practice. Have a lovely day.